Hey guys, tonight we start with the very beginning, or at least the beginning of one particular god who would later be known for thunderbolt sky thrones and a rather chaotic family life. That's right, you're settling into the story of Zeus, except not the dramatic thunderstorm part you've heard 100 times before. Instead, it's his early days tucked away in a cave, chewing well, sort of on some surprisingly boring snacks. Picture yourself stepping into that shadowy cavern in Crete, where baby Zeus is stashed to avoid his father Kronos' habit of swallowing his children whole. Yes, you probably wouldn't survive that family reunion, but here you are, imagining the sound of dripping water echoing against rough stone walls. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you've got a moment, drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love to see where and when you're tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crouch near the entrance of that cave and the air smells damp like wet moss and faint goat hair. Baby Zeus is there, not cradled in divine silk or golden cribs, but lying on a bed of wool tended by nymphs who probably had way too much patience. And the food, forget nectar and ambrosia. Those luxuries come later. At this stage, Zeus is basically on an ancient version of farm-to-table goat milk, courtesy of the magical goat Amalthea. Imagine nursing bottles being replaced by actual horns filled with frothy milk, lukewarm, slightly tangy, the sort of thing that would make modern toddlers spit it out instantly. Mainstream fact. The myth often mentions Amalthea, a goat, or sometimes a goat nymph, providing Zeus with milk until he grew strong. Her horn later becomes the cornucopia, the horn of plenty. Not exactly exciting in practice unless you enjoy watching someone slurp for hours. You picture yourself in the dim glow of torchlight, watching the nymphs bring out other treats, honey drizzled slowly into wooden bowls, little clumps of barley mashed into porridge. Maybe a stray fig or two. Nothing gourmet, more like the kind of snacks that make you yawn after a few bites. The nymphs coo, Zeus gurgles, and you're just sitting there, your eyelids heavy, while honey drips in agonizing slow motion. Quirky tidbit. There's a fringe version of the story that claims Zeus's diet included a mix of goat milk and crushed acorns. Yes, acorns. The kind squirrels bury and forget about. Imagine divine destiny fueled by squirrel food. You try to chew one mentally crunching dry tannins until your jaw hurts. A recipe so boring it could put an insomniac to sleep.
Meanwhile, you hear faint clanging in the background. The curate's warrior dancers are stomping their feet and banging their shields. Why to drown out Zeus's infant cries so Kronos won't hear him? But to you, it just sounds like background noise, like the clattering radiator in your apartment at 3 a.m. The rhythm becomes hypnotic, clang, thud, over and over until your thoughts slow down. Historians still argue whether those curates were actual warriors, priests, or just a cover story invented later to make the myth sound more dramatic. Either way, you picture yourself nodding along as they stomp in rhythm, your head bobbing until your neck loosens. Zeus, meanwhile, burps goat milk bubbles. He wriggles. He cries a little, then immediately gets a honey spoon shoved into his mouth. This cycle repeats endlessly, and you're forced to endure the ancient equivalent of watching paint dry. The milk drips, the honey drizzles, the barley turns soggy. You might as well be babysitting a future king of the gods while also trying not to doze off on your watch. Now, here's the slow part. The nymphs don't just feed Zeus, they also sing lullabies. Not catchy ones. Long droning chants that repeat the same 3 notes over and over, like someone practicing scales on a flute they don't actually know how to play. You sit through it smiling politely while your brain melts into boredom. The cave acoustics turn their hum into a kind of endless vibration, humming in your ears like white noise. Occasionally, Amalthea wanders by her hooves, clacking against stone, and drops another splash of milk. She doesn't hurry. Nothing in this cave hurries. Even the torch smoke curls in lazy spirals, taking its time to reach the ceiling.
You exhale, matching its pace, your breath slower, heavier. You remember that acorn porridge rumor and imagine yourself spooning mushy oak paste, each bite more flavorless than the last. Maybe one of the nymphs insists it's healthy fiber protein divine vitamins, but you're unconvinced. It tastes like chewing pencil shavings. Meanwhile, Zeus rolls onto his side, stuffed with honeyed milk and doses. The curates keep clanging anyway, because apparently, once you start banging shields, you don't stop. They're committed, and you're trapped in this endless soundtrack of dull percussion. You wonder if they argued shifts. Hey, you clang the shield for 3 hours. I'll clang for 3 hours, and then we'll switch. Maybe someone forgot their turn and got yelled at. Your eyes follow a droplet of cave water sliding down a stalactite, forming slowly, painfully slowly, before it falls with a faint plink into the stone bowl below. You count the drips 1, 2, 3, like the universe's slowest clock. Each drop feels like a tiny reminder that nothing here will ever move quickly. Not Zeus's diet, not your thoughts, not even the passage of mythic time. By now you're practically melting into the ground. Zeus yawns, tiny fists curl nymphs hush, curetes clang in monotone. And you just sit there, soaking in the most anticlimactic divine infancy you could possibly imagine. No thunder, no lightning, just milk burps and acorn porridge stretched out forever. You shuffle along an imaginary marble road, the kind polished smooth by centuries of sandaled feet. The gods of Olympus loom above you, not as thunder-throwing celebrities, but as neighbors who can't quite mind their own business. You picture them reclining on gleaming thrones, more concerned with petty grudges than with cosmic balance. Zeus, of course, clutches his lightning bolt like it's a remote control he refuses to share. He adjusts his beard impressively curly and surveys the world below as if he invented micromanagement. You'd think the king of the gods would have loftier concerns, but no half his time is spent meddling in family drama. The air on Olympus is unnervingly clear, thinner than mountain air, yet somehow heavy with gossip. You hear faint murmurs, Hera's sharp tone echoing like a bell, Hermes snickering in the corner. Aphrodite sighing dramatically as if she's on a stage. Historians still argue whether the image of Olympus was ever tied to a real mountain cult or simply poetic invention. Either way, you find yourself trapped in their celestial soap opera. You notice how their grandeur feels. A little overblown. The thrones are massive, carved of ivory and gold, but uncomfortable looking like furniture, chosen more for Instagram likes than lumbar support. Zeus occasionally leans over to whisper in Poseidon's ear, no doubt complaining about mortals who don't sacrifice enough goats. It makes you wonder whether gods really thrived on devotion or whether they just enjoyed free barbecue. Then there's Hera, queen of the heavens, regal in her peacock feather cloak. She shoots Zeus a glare sharp enough to peel paint. The irony isn't lost. Here's a goddess of marriage who spends most of her time plotting revenge against her own husband's girlfriends. Quirky tidbit archaeologists once found tiny votive figurines shaped like Hera's symbols, possibly left as apologies from nervous brides hoping not to be cursed. You imagine her rolling her eyes, muttering, "Thanks for the trinket, but maybe just tell Zeus to behave." Meanwhile, Hermes zips by winged sandals, fluttering like noisy flip-flops at a pool party. He drops a sly wink your way, which doesn't reassure you. Gods who smile like that usually mean paperwork. Dionysus lounges nearby, cup of wine in hand, spilling more on the marble floor than he drinks. You can practically smell the sour tang of grapes fermenting in the sun. Despite all the grandeur, Olympus feels strangely cramped. You shuffle past Artemis polishing her bow. Athena scowling at a scroll of military tactics, Ares flexing as if anyone cares about his biceps. The gods may be immortal, but their personalities are painfully human. You half expect someone to start a reality show keeping up with the Olympians. Historians still argue whether ancient Greeks actually believed in these gods literally or if they treated them as elaborate metaphors for natural forces. Either way, you can't escape the sense that this pantheon would dominate your social feed with endless drama posts. And through all this, you're the awkward mortal, sandwiched between thundercloud egos. You shuffle quietly, hoping no one notices, though Dionysus's wine spill nearly soaks your sandal. If the gods are supposed to embody order, this feels more like a chaotic dorm. You stifle a yawn, imagining how exhausting it would be to worship beings who can't stop arguing over who gets the better chair. The scene drifts away as though Olympus itself has grown tired of your company. The marble thrones dissolve, the gossip fades, and suddenly you find yourself standing in the quiet hum of an Athenian agora. The sunlight is soft, almost faded, as if the painter who brushed it on the stones was running low on pigment. Merchants mutter half-heartedly, their voices more like background static than real words. A donkey swishes its tail with the rhythm of a pendulum endlessly hypnotically. You notice how the city is both bustling and oddly still. The stones beneath your sandals are worn flat-polished, not by grandeur, but by the weight of everyday feet, farmers, sailors, children chasing one another. Someone coughs, someone else sighs. A dog lifts its head, decides you're boring, and lies back down. This is not the Athens of golden speeches or epic victories. This is the Athens where laundry flaps and bread smells faintly stale. A philosopher stands near a column, scratching his beard as if trying to remember what question he was about to ask. He looks important, but only because nobody else is talking. You strain to hear him, expecting a profound insight into justice, virtue, or the soul. Instead, he mumbles something about how olives taste better after a drizzle of oil. The crowd nods in slow agreement because in Athens even snacks can be philosophical. You shuffle past potters with clay-stained hands, their spinning wheels turning in endless circles, soft whir, soft pause, soft thump. A woman dips a jug into a fountain, the water echoing gently like a lullaby disguised as plumbing. Everything feels cyclical, repetitive, as though the whole city has synchronized itself to the rhythm of an afternoon nap. Then beyond the noise of sandals and low voices, you catch the drone of a public debate. Two men stand on a makeshift platform, one gesturing wildly, the other nodding like a slow metronome. Their topic. You strain again, hoping for Socratic wisdom, but it turns out they're arguing over whether figs or dates are better for digestion. Ancient democracy at its finest, every voice counts, even the bored ones. The agora itself feels like an enormous waiting room. Marble columns line the square, but they lean with the fatigue of centuries. Sparrows hop between cracks, pecking at crumbs, more engaged than the citizens who drift by. You half expect someone to call out your name, but instead you hear only the scrape of sandals dragging dust. And somewhere, faintly the Parthenon looms above, perched on its hill, like a permanent guardian. Yet in this moment, it doesn't feel glorious. It feels like an old relative watching from the porch, too tired to intervene. You glance up once, then let your gaze drop again. The weight of history presses down, not with awe, but with a kind of sleepy persistence. The world has seen this before. It will see it again. And in the meantime, the dog yawns, the potter spins, and you shuffle on.